We're going to move on to our next saint. What saint murdered his brother, was a rapist, and practiced human sacrifice? Wow.
Now, come on, audience. Which of you have ever done those things?
Whoa.
So if someone like this can become genuinely holy, there's hope for everybody.
Yes, there is.
And that's the point. Now, this saint lived in what today we call Russia. In those days, it was called Rus. And he eventually became the Prince of Kiev. So he was an illegitimate son.
Okay, we're going to have a future saint who was an illegitimate child.
Right.
Right?
Right. And his father was Igor. And, but this particular son, illegitimate son, wants to be the prince. The problem is his older brother follows the father to the throne. So what do?
Uh-oh.
Well, we murder the older brother. Now, the widow of the brother, he's killed, so she goes into a convent to spend her life in prayer and praying for her deceased husband. This person goes, rips her out of the convent, sexually assaults her and rapes her, and then puts her in his harem. Now, he had a harem of over 800 women that he had in different places, and he had about 9 wives that he called wives. So we get some idea that this is not the person that anyone would think this is the stuff out of which saints are made.
Right.
We see some real flaws in his character. Now, after murdering his brother and raping his sister-in-law, even he is concerned about this. So he has to placate the gods.
So he's a pagan.
He's a pagan. So he goes from bad to worse. So what he does, he builds a temple to all his false gods, and then engages in human sacrifice in order to placate them.
This man has quite a story.
Quite a story. Now, what happens? He's very successful militarily, and so the story develops. He's growing in power. He's acquiring more territory, and the Eastern Emperor Basil II is having problems. He's being threatened, and so the Emperor of Constantinople goes to this prince who's a great warrior and asks him to come to the aid of Constantinople. And he agrees to do that, but only under the condition that the emperor will give his sister Anna to him as wife. Now, Anna, first of all, it was unheard of in the Byzantine Empire that a sister of the emperor would go to a pagan.
And he's got 800 wives already, and he needs one more?
800 concubines and about 9 wives.
Okay.
And a very bad reputation. So Anna is very unhappy with this. She doesn't want to go. She tells her brother that he's selling her like a slave. And they force her to go. But this is the condition. They say, we'll let you marry Anna on condition you become a Christian.
That is a tall order for this man, isn't it?
Now, so what would you think? Well, okay, he's going to go through the rite of baptism.
Go through the motions.
Yeah, it's not going to mean anything. But the reality is, he becomes baptized, and he takes it seriously. It begins to change his life. He gets rid of all these false wives. He disbands his harems. He begins to pray. Has people reading the scriptures. He devotes huge amounts of money to supporting the poor and the indigent, and spends the rest of his life being a real father to his people. And the change of heart, his example was so powerful that so many of the nobility around him also converted to Christianity, because he didn't force anyone to become Christian. And eventually, his whole people in large numbers are converting to the faith.
I'm thinking they're probably saying, okay, this has to be real, because there's no way without God this man would have such a radical change.
Right. We also see the influence of a Christian wife.
Ooh, that's a beautiful part of his story.
Because, see, what he saw in Anna was someone who was different, who was chaste and pious and would accept her fate as God's will. And then, lo and behold, she goes there. I mean, she's forced to go there. And yet, in her obedience, then it turns out she has a great marriage.
That is really a beautiful story.
It's a wonderful story. And we've talked about this before in other contexts, but I dare say there'll be many men in heaven because of a holy wife.
Yes, amen to that.
Who prayed them there.
All right, is there anything else you want to tell us about this interesting saint before you name him?
His feast day is on July 15th. He died in the 11th century, 1015. And I dare say most of our audience won't be able to name this saint, but his name is Vladimir, Saint Vladimir of Kiev, or Saint Vladimir of Rus.
I love his story.
It's a great story. And again, it almost is miraculous. It shows how radically a person can change when Christ really enters their life.